We've all been there, haven't we? That little poke, that moment when you're getting your blood drawn,
Yeah.
feels so routine, almost, well, mundane, really. But
Right.
what if that simple act is actually, right at the cutting edge of medical tech? What if there's way more going on than we think?
Oh, absolutely. It might seem simple, but blood collection is truly fundamental in healthcare. You think about diagnostics, transfusions, therapies. It's often the critical first step. Its importance is, well, it's massive and often really underestimated.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into today. This deep dive is all about exploring the dynamic blood collection market. We're going to look at where it stands now, some genuinely surprising tech advancements, what's pushing its growth so fast, and of course, what the future might hold. All based on this market analysis you've shared. It looks fascinating. So just to set the scene, what is blood collection exactly? Is it just the needle in the arm, or is it broader?
It's definitely broader, yeah. Venipuncture of the needle in the vein, that's the most common one we all think of. But it also covers things like finger stick sampling, for smaller amounts, and even arterial sampling for specific tests like blood gases. All absolutely vital for, well, analyzing and diagnosing all sorts of medical conditions. It's foundational.
Foundational.
Oh.
Okay. So how big are we talking here? What's the scale of this market? Is it growing?
Ooh, the scale is significant. Get this, the estimate for 2024 is around USD 3.9 billion, roughly. But the really interesting part is the projection. It's expected to climb to nearly USD 7.75 billion by 2032. That's a compound annual growth rate, a key AGR, of about 8.9%,
Right.
which is, well, pretty impressive.
Well, yeah, almost 9% CAGR. That's substantial, especially for something that feels so established. What's fueling that kind of growth? Why nearly double in, 8 years?
It's a convergence of a few major global trends, really. First, you've got the expansion of healthcare infrastructure globally. More clinics, more hospitals means more tests. Then there's the aging population worldwide. Older populations generally mean more healthcare needs, right? Especially for chronic disease monitoring, which often relies on regular blood tests.
Makes sense.
And preventive care is becoming much bigger, people getting checkups before they get sick. Plus, things like greater awareness around blood donation and better blood banks also play a role. They increase the supply and efficiency.
Okay, so demand is definitely rising. But with that kind of scale, how is the industry actually innovating? Especially around, like you said, the patient experience. Where are the really exciting changes happening?
Right, that's where it gets really interesting. There's a definite move towards techniques that are minimally invasive and more patient-focused. Microfluidic devices are a great example for capillary blood collection. These use tiny channels, need much less blood, and it's far less uncomfortable. That's a huge win, particularly for kids or elderly patients, where a standard blood draw can be pretty tough.
Less discomfort is always good. But it's not just the physical act, is it? What about digital tech? Is that playing a part?
Oh, absolutely. Digital health integration is huge. Think about wearable devices. We're moving beyond just step counting. Some wearables are starting to allow for continuous blood monitoring, which means, real-time analysis for doctors, and crucially, fewer traditional blood draws for the patient.
So like constant data without constant pokes.
Exactly. Imagine managing diabetes or another chronic condition with that kind of real-time data feeding into your treatment plan. It shifts things towards proactive management.
Yeah, I could see how that would be a game changer. Okay, so patient comfort, digital integration. What about efficiency behind the scenes? In the labs, is automation taking off?
Definitely. Automation in blood collection is a major trend. Automated systems improve the quality of the sample itself. They cut down on human error, which is always a risk with manual handling. And they seriously boost efficiency in hospitals and labs. They can handle much higher volumes, faster, and more reliably.
Okay, so speed and accuracy, less chance of mixing things up or incorrect volumes.
Precisely. Fewer errors in labeling, handling, volume consistency. It standardizes the process.
And what about keeping the sample pure? I've heard about closed-loop systems.
Yes, those are vital. Closed-loop systems basically protect the sample from contamination right from the point of collection. They ensure it stays sterile, meets all those really strict regulatory standards, adds a big layer of safety and reliability. And tying back slightly, those awareness campaigns for voluntary donation. They also help efficiency by ensuring a steadier, more predictable supply for these systems. Now, if we zoom out and look at the global picture, it's quite interesting. North America is currently the leader, holds over 40% of the market share. That's mainly down to its very established healthcare infrastructure, and high adoption of new tech, especially in the US. They tend to embrace these innovations quickly.
Right. And Europe, you said they're significant too, around 30% share.
Yeah, Europe's strong too, about 30%. Driven by solid healthcare innovation, good public health systems, and often supportive government policies for donation and advanced practices. Think Germany, UK, France. But the place to watch for growth, that's Asia Pacific. It's projected to grow at around 8% CAGR through 2032.
8%? Wow.
Yeah. Driven by, well, rising rates of chronic diseases, unfortunately, but also increasing healthcare spending and just a boom in diagnostic labs, especially in places like China, India, Japan. Healthcare access is expanding fast there.
Fascinating regional differences.
Yeah.
So in this big global market, who are the main players, the big companies driving this?
It's competitive, but dominated by a few key players. Abbott Laboratories has the biggest slice, around 20% in 2024. Then you have Becton, Dickinson, and Company BD. They're close behind at about 18%. And Terumo Corporation holds around 10%. Their strategies, well, lots of investment in R&D, obviously, improving products, integrating tech. And you also see a lot of strategic moves, mergers, acquisitions, partnerships to broaden their offerings and reach.
So lots of innovation, lots of strategic maneuvering. And it sounds like blood collection products themselves are becoming sort of more preferred within the wider medical consumable space.
That's right. It speaks to the value they offer, precision, convenience, standardization compared to older methods. So in 2024, these blood collection products, they accounted for about 40% of the whole medical consumables market. That's compared to, say, diagnostic kits at 30% and syringes at 25%.
Quite dominant then.
Yeah, and it's expected to nudge up slightly, maybe to 42% by 2025, really pushed by that demand for minimally invasive options and that patient-centric focus.
Okay, so it sounds like a booming market, lots of positive trends, but it can't all be easy, right?
Yeah.
What are the bumps in the road? Regulations must be a factor.
Oh, absolutely. Regulatory hurdles are significant. You've got bodies like the FDA in the US, the European Medicines Agency. They have incredibly strict rules. For any new product or technology, there's extensive clinical testing needed, complex approval processes, really tight quality control. We're talking extremely high standards for things like sterility, precision, safety. You can't compromise there.
And I bet all that testing, plus specific rules for labeling, packaging, storage, it must add a lot of cost and time, especially if you want to sell globally.
Exactly. It drives up production costs significantly, and it definitely lengthens the time it takes to get a new product to market. And yeah, going global is complex. Different countries, different regulations. It can really slow things down, particularly in those high-growth emerging markets you want to reach.
So all that scrutiny, the paperwork, the audits, it adds layers of cost and complexity. Sounds like it could be a real barrier, especially for smaller companies trying to innovate.
That's a very good way to put it. It's kind of a double-edged sword. The safeguards are essential for patient safety, no question, but they do create barriers. It can slow down innovation getting to patients, and it definitely makes it harder for smaller, perhaps more agile companies that might not have the resources to navigate that complex landscape.
Okay, so challenges exist. But despite those hurdles, where is this all actually going? What's next? What's the really exciting stuff on the horizon?
Well, what's fascinating here is that even with those challenges, the future looks incredibly bright. Innovation is still pushing forward, focusing on both the patient and efficiency.
And you mentioned a specific product earlier, something already hitting the market, the BD Vacutainer.
Ah, yes. The BD Vacutainer Ultra Touch push-button blood collection set. BD launched it in India back in April 2024. It's a great example. It uses some really clever needle technology. They call it right gauge. And pen to point, basically, it makes the needle thinner, much sharper, the result. Less pain on insertion. They're aiming for single prick success more often, and they claim it can cut needle-related injuries by up to 88%.
88%, wow.
Yeah, it's a big jump. Directly tackles patient comfort and safety. Exactly that patient-centric trend we talked about.
That's a concrete improvement.
Yeah.
What about that idea of continuous monitoring? Are wearable collectors really feasible soon?
It's looking increasingly likely that's potentially revolutionary. Wearable devices for continuous or maybe periodic sampling without needing invasive procedures each time. Think about managing chronic conditions or even clinical research. Getting that constant stream of real-time data could completely change how treatments are personalized and managed. Preventative care could get a massive boost.
Yeah, the convenience factor alone is huge. And the whole system sounds like it's getting smarter. Integration with digital health, IoT, even blockchain.
Absolutely. Smart systems are integrating with digital health platforms, with the Internet of Things. This gives much better transparency and efficiency right through the process, from collection to the lab results. And yes, blockchain is emerging as a way to ensure secure, traceable processes. Think about sample tracking, data integrity, as a really important layer of trust.
Incredible level of tech integration. Anything else, maybe new materials or even environmental considerations.
Both. On the materials front, people are looking at things like bioactive coatings for needles or tubes, designed to, further reduce discomfort, maybe prevent contamination even better, improve sample quality. And yes, sustainability is definitely becoming a bigger focus. There's a push towards biodegradable materials, reducing single-use plastics where possible. The industry is recognizing its environmental footprint needs attention too.
So pulling all this together, what does it all mean? It seems like the blood collection market is really heating up, driven by this mix of tech advancements, automation, AI, even those non-invasive liquid biopsies you mentioned, alongside just growing healthcare needs globally, and this really important shift towards making the whole process better for the patient.
That sums it up well. It's a very dynamic field. Its role as a critical piece of the healthcare puzzle is only going to get stronger as it keeps innovating and finding solutions for unmet needs in diagnostics and treatment.
Absolutely. So maybe next time you're having blood drawn, just think about it for a second. That simple poke, it's part of a hidden revolution. How might all these changes, less pain, continuous data, maybe even greener materials, how might they change not just medicine, but your own personal experience with healthcare down the road? Something really powerful to consider.